Northman, bro.
Dude. More like the down bad man.
He was down bad the whole movie.
Dude,
except for 2 scenes that I can think of.
Yeah. What, the 2 times he got laid?
Yeah.
I will avenge you, father! I will save you, mother! I will kill you, father!
But one of the things I loved about the movie was how like I said, since the characters believed in Norse mythology and thought that was real to them, it was real to the movie.
Yeah.
And I like how the movie lets you as the audience member parse out the implications of that worldview, because the movie doesn't really go, and this is wrong, or and this is fake and this is real. It really does end with Alexander Skarsgård, Amleth. I can't remember.
There's a
in the movie, it was hard to hear the
Amleth.
Yeah, Amleth. The movie ends with his perspective of what he thinks he accomplished, and I like how he just is like, yeah, because that was real to him. Now, is it right or wrong? I think he lets that sit with you. Yeah. And I really appreciated the movie because if you compare it to the other big action movie that came out this year, The Batman, right? Another film about vengeance.
Yeah.
It's not right or wrong, but, you know, The Batman tells a story where Batman changes.
Yeah.
And his perspective on vengeance is interrogated throughout the film. And then finally, he has a cathartic moment and he changes as a character.
Yep.
The Northman is not that type of story.
No.
The point is that he doesn't change. And by buying in fully to the Norse mythology, he is letting the audience go, okay, he thought this is what happened. Now you use your own understanding of the world and see how that sits with you.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't change, and that's almost the point, because he has a moment to change at the end.
Yeah.
Or what we called the heat moment.
The heat moment, baby.
He has a moment to change, and he doesn't. And I think that's the point Robert Eggers wants you to consider is look at what this worldview leads you to.
Yeah.
And for me, just real quick, I think the point of this movie is understanding the power of mythology and the power of stories, and how a mythology and a story, a religious story, whatever, a national story, what that can do to a person and how that has control over them. Because you get the sense throughout the whole movie, he almost considers himself having no control. He is beholden to this understanding of
his fate,
and honoring his ancestors.
Yeah.
And it's like he has no choice. And I think that's an interesting question, is like, is that true? And if so, look at what that does to a person.
To not fear anything because your fate is already sealed. You know, like I know what my fate's going to be already. Like it's already decided. So like this moment doesn't matter anymore. Like my decision in this moment doesn't matter because my fate is what it is. No, I think that that's great. I had a little different take on it, but it kind of lines up similarly because of that fate thing that we were talking about. But I kind of landed in a way of just kind of thinking about, I thought the point of the movie was just counting the cost of like the cost of revenge, basically. What is the cost of revenge? If you're going to go after it with like everything that you have, sacrifice everything that you hold dear for that, what is that cost? Because there is a cost. And the movie hints at it a little bit, and they don't say this exact line, but it's like almost has the exact same meaning. But it's like that the classic live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing. Yeah. Where it's like, what else can you expect if that's what you're chasing after? But no, I love that idea of the stories that we hear growing up, and like how we are taught to believe like a certain thing and be a certain way, and the cost that can have, like when it's all said and done. Because it's interesting, on one hand, he's at peace with it.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's nothing in his mind to be upset about. Like, he's at peace with that. That was his fate the whole time.
Yeah.
Your fate is set and you cannot escape it.
The movie doesn't actually come out of its way and go, oh, revenge is bad. Because from Amlet's perspective, he had his Valkyrie moment. He got revenge at the very end. Yeah. And he's dying, but like he has a vision of his baby mama and his kids. Yep. And he's like, okay, great. She's gonna raise them. Yeah. All good. My lineage, I have spread my seed. Yeah. My family tree grows. Yeah. And I'm gonna be carried off by the Valkyrie. And from his perspective, that's what happened. Yeah. But I like how Robert Eggers lets the audience member go, that's not how it works. Yeah. And so he kind of puts it on our side and lets us wrestle with it. Yeah. And for me, the takeaway was, and I'm sure there's some reading into this, but that's what I think film is there's a dialogue. I might be reading into it, but for me, it's like, what stories are controlling me like that?
Sure, yeah.
Because from Ethan Hawke, the father character, he was led by the same story. He comes home to Nicole Kidman, and he's like, no, I'm not going to sleep with you because I got to worry about my ancestry. Yeah. And she even quotes that as a reason why she didn't love him, is because he was so concerned about money and power and growing his dynasty and passing it on that he forgot about everything else. And Skarsgård, Amleth, develops the same thing. And you see the power of this story over him, and how he even says in the middle of the film, he goes, well, once I get my revenge, then I'll see if life's actually worth living. Because to him, it's like, I'm not living my life for me right now.
I actually thought the movie was going to go this way, but it ended up not, where it's like this idea that revenge is kind of an endless cycle. Where it's like, okay, someone did me wrong. Now I'm going to get revenge. Now they've got to get revenge. Yep. Now I've got to get revenge, and it goes on and on and on and on without an end. But he actually ended up, and this is a huge spoiler, but he actually ended up killing this guy's entire family. Yeah. So it's it was, there was no retribution there that anyone was going to be able to come back on him with, because that was kind of his point, was that I'm not going to have my children grow up in a world where there's someone like chasing after them or looking for them. But that's not really why he went back, I don't think.
Yeah. I mean, like I think that definitely is a part of it. Like we both said in the theater, like there was a heat moment where he had the opportunity to stay with his love, Anna Taylor-Joy, and start a new life and just put revenge on his uncle behind him. Yeah. And probably live a happier life. But once he realized she was pregnant and he had a lineage to protect.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. It wouldn't have been a happier life to him. That's for us. Right. For him, that would have been a miserable life. Right. Because he would have died an old man. Yeah. And the only way...
They don't like that story.
And the only way for them to truly live up and get honor and like achieve is to die in battle, is like the greatest thing you can achieve. So to them, like that's for us what we wanted him to do. Yeah. But for him, that's miserable.
Yeah. And that's the tension. Like these stories.
That's the interesting, that's the fascinating point about it, is just these vastly different worldviews that we find clashing in this movie. Yeah. And maybe that's a good way of like, for me to translate it, is just like, maybe it's a movie about revenge, but it's a movie about like clashing worldview between like this ideology and this way in which this what they believed in back then, and how strongly they believed in it versus like what we hold sacred now. Mm-hmm.
For me, my takeaway was, again, like the power stories have over us and the myths we inherit, the myths from our society, and how in a way they do control us and they do bring us towards a fate, because it changes how we see the world and what our priorities are. It affects our priorities. And it was interesting to see a movie where it shows you like how beholden this guy was to this worldview and he inherited from his father. Yeah. And it led him to ashes and death, but for him it was a victory. And I like that kind of like that sourness in your mouth where you're like, is this a happy ending or is it not? Well, and I like that.
Again, unique because it felt like the team that made this movie said, like, we are going to make a movie that's completely true to like the Northman, the Norse like belief system.
Yeah.
And like what they felt was most important. And like, I felt like they stayed true to that for better or worse, like, and for worse, making the audience feel some kind of way about like that bitterness, that feeling that you have. But I think that can be a good, like, for a piece of art.
Yeah.
You want to feel moved in some way. And by the end of the movie, it had me asking questions like, wow, what did I get out of that? Like, what should I be pulling away from that? Like, what did he mean by this? And I love when movies can do that. I think that's cool. And this movie did that for me.
You must choose between kindness for your kin or hate for your enemies.
Yeah, so, well, for those watching on YouTube right now, you can listen to the full discussion in podcast form in the links below, Professional Appreciators. And if you're listening on audio, you can check out the YouTube video. I should have the link in the show description. And just a reminder, you can add us on Patreon and become a patron. For as little as $1, $5, or $25, you can get early access to the podcast and the video thumbnails, and eventually movie commentaries, which we're trying to do the Batman here soon.
Coming up by the end of this month.
Yeah, the end of this month, or at the very latest, early May. Yeah, we will have a full commentary on the Batman that you can get on Patreon for, I want to say the $5 tier, but we'll see. Maybe this first one I'll make it for the $1 tier as well. Yeah. So be on the lookout for that. Patreon.com/Why It's Great, and then Professional Appreciators for the podcast.
Yeah. Don't forget to subscribe and like.
Yeah. So get your Viking on, and we'll see you later.
Yeah.